They say every small town has one house that everyone avoids. In the quiet backroads of rural Ohio, that house stood on the corner of Sycamore Lane, its mailbox leaning like it was tired of waiting for good news. When Ethan and Claire bought it, they thought they'd found a miracle, a 3-bedroom farmhouse for less than a used car. But the old man who sold it to them said something strange before handing over the keys. He leaned in close, voice trembling like dry paper. "You can fix what's broken. Paint over what's ugly, but don't open the pantry." They laughed it off. 3 nights later, they heard plates clinking behind the locked door. Story begins. The house looked like something out of a postcard. White shutters, chipped porch steps, wild ivy climbing up the sides. Claire fell in love with it the moment they turned into the gravel driveway. It was supposed to be their fresh start. After Ethan lost his job at the auto plant, they needed somewhere cheap, quiet, away from the city. The ad had seemed too good to be true. Historic farmhouse, 3-bed, 2-bath, move-in ready. $19,000 or best offer. They half expected the realtor to laugh them out of the office. Instead, an old man named Mr. Grayson met them there in person. Thin, stooped, wearing a tweed jacket that smelled faintly of mothballs. He showed them around like someone giving away a burden. Every time they stepped into a room, his eyes darted toward a small door near the kitchen, wooden, painted over so many times it blended into the wall. Claire noticed it right away. "What's in there?" she asked casually. Grayson hesitated. "Storage," he said softly. "Best to keep it that way," Ethan chuckled. "So what's the secret pantry hiding? Gold, skeletons?" The old man didn't laugh. He just stared at Ethan for a long moment, then reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small brass key, tarnished old, and pressed it into Claire's hand. "Every door needs its key," he said, "but not every key should be used." Claire felt the metal was warm, like it had been in someone's palm for hours. They signed the papers that afternoon. By nightfall, the house was theirs. They unpacked boxes in the soft hum of cicadas and the smell of wet soil after a storm. The kitchen creaked under their footsteps, wood swollen from years of humidity. Claire set up candles on the counter while Ethan tested the old fuse box in the hallway. "Lights still work," he shouted proudly. "Great," she smiled, lighting another candle. "Because the oven sure doesn't." They joked, laughed, and toasted to new beginnings. But when Claire turned to blow out the candle nearest the pantry door, she froze. The brass key, the one Grayson gave her, was now lying on the kitchen floor. She was sure she had left it in her purse. That night, the house didn't sleep easily. Wind pressed against the windows. Floorboards popped and groaned like something shifting underneath. Around 2:30 a.m., Claire woke up to the sound of faint clinking, like silverware tapping porcelain. She nudged Ethan awake. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. He groaned, half asleep. Probably a raccoon in the kitchen, but she knew it wasn't. The sound had rhythm, deliberate. A soft scrape, then clink, like someone setting a table. She walked quietly down the stairs. The air felt colder near the kitchen, damp and still. And then she saw it, the light from the oven bulb flickering. And under the pantry door, a thin line of warm golden light. The next morning, Ethan laughed it off again. "You're just on edge, babe. First night in a creepy house, you know how it goes." Claire wanted to agree. She really did. But she couldn't just shake the image of that warm light coming from a door that hadn't even opened in decades. While unpacking, she noticed something else odd. All the kitchen drawers were labeled in pencil. Knives, forks, cups, except the one nearest the pantry. That one read, "Dinner for 3." She tried to open it. It wouldn't budge. Later that day, while Ethan went to town for groceries, Claire explored the attic. Dust and sunlight drifted through broken slats. She found boxes of old records, faded family photos, and a yellowed newspaper clipping taped to the wall. The headline read, "Local family vanishes from home on Sycamore Lane 1962. Beneath it, a photo of the very same house. And at the bottom, handwritten in black ink, they never found the pantry key." By evening, Ethan returned with a bag of takeout and 2 beers. He saw the look on Claire's face and frowned. "What's wrong?" She handed him the clipping. "Ethan, we need to call that old man. Ask him what he meant by 'don't open the pantry.'" But before she could finish, they both heard it. A faint thump from the kitchen, then a slow creak. The pantry door had moved, just a little, enough to see a sliver of darkness between the frame. And sitting right in front of it was a dinner plate, still wet, still steaming. The plate sat in the middle of the kitchen floor, like someone had set it there intentionally. Steam rose from the mashed potatoes, curling into the air. A slice of roast beef glistened in the candlelight, and beside it, a folded cloth napkin. Ethan crouched down, his face pale. "Did you do this?" Claire shook her head slowly. "I was upstairs, Ethan. I heard it." "Slide." He touched the edge of the plate. It was still hot. "How the hell?" A sound interrupted him. A faint click, click, click. The radio on the counter, a boxy old thing from the 1950s, had turned itself on, only static at first. Then, buried deep in the noise, came a whisper. "Claire." She froze. "Did you?" Ethan twisted the dial, trying to shut it off, but the knob wouldn't move. The volume rose instead, the voice stretching, distorting. "Claire, dinner's ready." Then the light bulb above them popped. Darkness swallowed the kitchen. They didn't sleep that night. Ethan double-checked every lock in the house while Claire sat on the couch clutching a blanket. When he came back, he said what people always say when they don't know what else to say. "It is probably electrical. These old houses do weird stuff." She didn't respond. Her eyes kept drifting toward the pantry. The door was shut again, but she could feel it, like something was standing behind it, waiting for her to come closer. When she finally went to bed, she put the brass key under her pillow. The next morning, sunlight poured in through the curtains. The kitchen looked perfectly normal. No plate, no napkin, no sign of dinner. Ethan laughed nervously. "See, maybe we both dreamed it." First night jitters. Claire wanted to believe that. But when she opened the fridge to grab milk, her heart stopped. Inside, sitting on the middle shelf, was that same plate of food, perfectly arranged, still warm. By noon, Ethan had made up his mind. "We're calling Grayson. He's gonna tell us what's going on, or I'm getting a crowbar and opening that damn pantry myself." Claire tried calling. No answer. She tried again. The line crackled, then a voice picked up. Not Grayson's, a woman's. Her tone was dry, irritated. "Mr. Grayson passed away last week. Who's calling?" Claire's throat tightened. My husband and I just bought his property on Sycamore Lane. I needed to ask him something about the pantry." There was a pause. Then the woman spoke softly, almost like she didn't want to be overheard. "You found it, didn't you?" Claire's pulse thudded in her ears. "Found what?" The line went dead. That night, Ethan went into town to pick up supplies. New locks, batteries, candles. Claire stayed behind. She tried distracting herself, unpacking, cleaning, anything to avoid the pantry. But as the sun began to set, that familiar tension crept in again. The air seemed thicker, heavier, the quiet too deliberate, and then the sound, soft at first, the clinking of dishes. She grabbed the brass key from the counter and walked toward the door. Her heartbeat matched her footsteps. The doorknob was cold. For a long moment, she just stood there, staring at the tiny keyhole, the faint smell of cooked meat wafting through the cracks. Then she slid the key in. It turned effortlessly. The door opened into darkness, not pitch black, but something worse. Dim yellow light spilled from an old hanging bulb, swinging slightly. Inside was a small windowless room. And there, in the center, sat a dining table, 3 chairs, 3 plates, 2 empty, 1 full, still steaming. Claire stepped closer, trembling. The food looked fresh. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, peas, a slice of apple pie. And across from the plate lay a single folded napkin embroidered with the name Claire. She gasped, and then she saw it. A small, old-fashioned radio on the table. Its cord dangled uselessly, cut clean at the end. It flickered to life. "Welcome home," the voice said. The air turned ice cold. She stumbled backward, slamming the door shut and locking it. Her breathing came in sharp bursts. Moments later, Ethan's truck pulled into the driveway. He walked in carrying groceries and saw her standing frozen in the hallway. "What happened?" She pointed toward the pantry. "It's not empty. There's a table, food, a radio." "Ethan," it said my name. He dropped the bag and rubbed his temples. "Claire, listen to yourself. It's been a stressful week." "We're tired. Go look," she snapped. Reluctantly, he stepped toward the door and turned the knob. It was locked tight again. He used the key. When it opened, there was nothing inside but dust and shelves. Empty shelves. Claire swore her vision blurred. No, it was right there. "I saw it. Maybe it's old paint fumes," Ethan said softly. "You've been cleaning all day. Let's just get some rest, okay?" She wanted to argue, but exhaustion swallowed her words. That night, the pantry stayed quiet, but at exactly 3:07 a.m., the radio in their bedroom, a battery-powered one Claire used for music, switched on by itself. Through the static came that same voice, calm, almost gentle. "Claire, you forgot to finish your dinner?" She screamed, and the radio exploded in sparks. Ethan jumped up, shouting her name. When he turned toward her side of the bed, his blood ran cold. The brass key, the one Madee left in the kitchen, was lying on her pillow again. Claire didn't sleep after that night. She sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the brass key glinting under the lamplight. It didn't make sense. She'd locked it away twice. Ethan tried to calm her down with coffee and denial. "Maybe you grabbed it without realizing. You've been dreaming with your eyes open lately." But she wasn't listening. Something about that voice, the one whispering from the radio, had a familiarity to it, like someone she almost recognized. When she looked out the window that morning, a delivery truck idled by the mailbox. The driver hopped out and handed her a small brown envelope. No return address. Just one word on the front, Claire. Inside was an old photograph. 3 people sitting around a dinner table, 2 adults, 1 little girl. The room looked exactly like their pantry, but the girl looked just like her. That night, the power flickered again. The air felt colder than usual, even with the furnace running. Ethan kept insisting it was just faulty wiring, but when he went to check the breaker box, he called her down in a trembling voice. "Claire, you need to see this." She followed him into the basement. The concrete walls were cracked, damp. Cobwebs swayed under the single hanging bulb. And there, drawn on the far wall in thick black charcoal, were names. Eleanor, Thomas, Mary, each scratched out violently. Below them, written fresh and dark, Claire. She stepped back, shaking. "Someone's been down here." Ethan grabbed a hammer from the shelf. "Who? We're in the middle of nowhere." Then something knocked beneath their feet. A hollow, rhythmic thump coming from under the floorboards above. Once, twice, then a 3rd time. "Is that upstairs?" Claire whispered. Ethan's voice was tight. "No, it's below." They followed the sound back upstairs. It led straight to the kitchen. And when the final knock came, it echoed from beneath the pantry. Claire felt the hair on her arms rise. She knelt down, pressing her ear to the cold wood. Faint, muffled, but unmistakable, a voice whispered from below, "We're still hungry." She stumbled back. Ethan yanked her away from the door, slamming it shut. "Enough," he shouted. "We're getting out of here tonight. Grab your things." They ran upstairs, stuffing clothes into duffel bags. But when they came back down, the front door was wide open. A chill rolled in, carrying the scent of cooked meat and something rotten beneath it. On the kitchen table sat 2 plates of food, both steaming, both identical to the one Claire had seen before, and between them, a 3rd plate empty. Ethan stormed toward the pantry, rage overtaking fear. "I'm ending this. Don't," Claire screamed. "You don't understand," but he was already twisting the knob. The door creaked open and light spilled out again, that dim golden glow like candlelight through fog. Inside, the table was waiting, 3 places set, 3 chairs. This time, the food was fresh, steam rose in curls. And sitting in the 3rd chair was a small figure, a little girl in a faded blue dress. Her face pale, eyes black and glassy. Claire froze. The girl smiled. "You're late for dinner," Ethan shouted and slammed the door shut, his breath shaking. He dragged Claire toward the truck outside. "We're leaving now." They sped down the gravel road, engine roaring, gravel spraying behind them. But as they passed the "Welcome to Sycamore Lane" sign, Claire looked in the side mirror and gasped. The house lights were still on, and standing in the front window, the little girl watched them go. They checked into a roadside motel an hour away. Ethan stayed in the shower for nearly half an hour, trying to wash the smell of the house off his skin. Claire sat on the bed, staring at the photograph from the envelope. She turned it over. On the back, in faded handwriting, "Dinner for 3, 1962. Her stomach turned. The same words were written on that drawer in the kitchen. When Ethan came out, dripping and exhausted, she showed him the photo. He went silent. "I'm calling the county records office tomorrow," he said finally. "We'll find out who those people were." But the next morning, when he checked his phone, the screen glitched, static flooding across the glass, and for a split second, she saw her own face reflected back at him, sitting at the table. That day, he drove to the county library in town while Claire stayed behind in the motel. Hours later, he returned with a folder and a look of disbelief. "You're not gonna like this," he said, dropping the papers on the table. The documents were old property records, yellowed, torn, stamped with local court seals. Thomas and Eleanor Barnes lived at 47 Sycamore Lane with their daughter, Claire Barnes, reported missing July 8th, 1962. Claire's throat went dry. "What did you just say?" Ethan nodded slowly. Their daughter's name was Claire. She shook her head, trembling. "That's impossible." He slid another paper toward her, a photograph from the microfilm. It showed a little girl, maybe 6 or 7. Same hair color, same eyes. The caption beneath it read, "Last seen wearing a blue dress, the same blue dress as the girl in the pantry." That night, neither of them could sleep. Claire sat awake, staring at the motel lamp, her mind replaying every whisper, every flicker, every plate of food. Then, at 3:07 a.m., the exact same time, the radio alarm on the nightstand clicked on. Through the static, the voice came again. "Dinner's getting cold, Claire." She turned toward Ethan, but his side of the bed was empty. The motel room was still. Only the low hum of the air conditioner filled the dark. Claire's hand hovered over the radio, its red light glowing faintly on the nightstand. "Ethan?" She whispered, no answer. Just static, and then through the hiss came the scrape of silverware. Clink, scrape, clink. Her chest tightened. She followed the sound to the bathroom door. Light glowed beneath it, not the harsh white of the motel bulb, but that same dim golden hue she'd seen in the pantry. She pushed the door open, empty, the mirror fogged with condensation, though the shower was cold. And written in the fog, in careful loops, "Come home." The floor beneath her bare feet felt wrong, soft, like damp soil instead of tile. When she stepped back into the room, the radio on the nightstand was gone, In its place sat a steaming plate of food. Claire stumbled outside, gasping for air. The parking lot was deserted except for Ethan's truck, keys still in the ignition, door wide open. "Ethan!" she screamed. A faint light blinked down the road, a porch light miles away, swaying in the wind. The house, it was impossible. They'd driven over an hour away, but there it was, waiting on the horizon. Something inside her moved, not thought, not choice. Something deeper, older, pulling her back. She climbed into the truck. The engine started on its own. The radio crackled alive. "You forgot to finish dinner." The truck lurched forward. When she reached Sycamore Lane, fog hugged the ground. The front door of the house stood open, glowing like a candle in the dark. She stepped inside. Everything was spotless, as if no one had lived there for decades. The air smelled of roast beef and apple pie. Her footsteps echoed down the hallway, slow and certain. When she passed the living room mirror, she caught a glimpse of herself, but her reflection wasn't tea-wearing jeans and a t-shirt anymore. It wore a blue dress. Claire's throat tightened. No. The pantry door was open. Warm light spilled out, flickering gently. Inside, the table was set again. 3 plates, 2 occupied. A man and a woman sat perfectly still, faces pale and glassy, the same couple from the old photograph. And the third chair, her chair, waited empty. She trembled, voice cracking. "Why me?" The little girl appeared beside the table, her blue dress spotless. She smiled softly, not wicked, not cruel, just lonely. "Because you left." Claire's head spun. "I'm not you." The girl stepped closer. "You were once." She touched Claire's hand. The skin was ice cold. Memories flashed. The 1960s kitchen, her father laughing, her mother serving pie. Then shouting, fire, smoke, the pantry door slamming shut from the outside, and silence. Claire staggered back, gasping. "You died here?" The girl nodded. "We all did. But the house remembers. It keeps the table ready." The radio on the table crackled. A man's voice, deeper now, familiar. "Sit down, sweetheart. It's time to eat." Ethan's voice echoed faintly from the hallway. "Claire, where are you?" She turned, eyes wide. "Ethan, don't come in." But he already had. He froze at the sight of the figures of the table. "Oh, God." The little girl smiled wider. "There's room for one more." The pantry door slammed shut behind him. The bulb above flickered violently. The radio screamed with static, hundreds of voices at once. Ethan reached for the knob, pulling, shouting her name. But the harder he pulled, the warmer the air became, the smell of food growing sweeter, thicker. Claire's vision blurred. She could see her reflection in the radio's chrome surface, hair shorter, dress older, eyes not her own. She whispered, "I remember now." The girl took her hand and guided her to the table. When Claire sat, the other 2 figures smiled faintly, as if relieved. Across from them, Ethan's shouting faded, then stopped. A moment later, a 3rd plate appeared before him on the other side of the door. Morning came quietly. The house on Sycamore Lane looked peaceful again. Dew on the grass, birds calling through the trees. The real estate sign out front now read, "For sale." A man in a tweed jacket hammered the stake into the ground, straightened it, and turned toward the porch. Inside, he checked the kitchen, dusted shelves, washed plates, set the table neatly. 3 places. When he left, the camera of the security company blinked once, catching a brief reflection in the glass. 3 silhouettes sitting at the table, smiling, waiting. Epilogue 2 weeks later. A young couple pulled into the driveway, smiling at the bargain they'd found. "Wow," the husband said. 3 bedrooms for 20 grand? What's the catch?" The new agent, an older woman with kind eyes, handed them the paperwork. "There's only one rule," she said softly. "Don't open the pantry. End of story."